My name is Marius Cole. I'm 28 years old, living in Los Angeles. 10 years ago, I walked away from my family where my sister was always praised while I was treated as if I didn't exist. Then, out of the blue, they called and invited me to her big birthday party. At first, I wanted to refuse, but deep down, something urged me to go. After a decade, I wanted to see with my own eyes how they would welcome me back. The party was filled with dazzling lights, champagne glasses, and my sister's glamorous friends. The moment I walked in, every eye turned toward me, heavy with judgment. My sister leaned in a smug smile, curling on her lips. And then she dropped the line that made the entire room erupt with laughter. "You can't even afford an old car." Laughter echoed, cutting through the air. I didn't flinch. I simply smiled, reached into my purse, and placed a business card on the table. Instantly, her face went pale. She nearly choked on her drink. What was written on that card? Why did the whole room fall silent? "Keep watching. You won't see this coming." Growing up in Los Angeles, I always felt like I was living in someone else's shadow. My sister, 2 years older, was the golden child. From the moment she could walk, she had that sparkle, tall, poised with a smile that lit up every room. By the time she was 10, she was already booking local modeling gigs, strutting in department store ads while mom and dad clapped like she'd won an Oscar. I was just the quiet kid doodling dress designs in my notebook, dreaming of fashion school. But in our house, her dreams were the only ones that mattered. Dad, a real estate agent, and Mom, a part-time event planner, poured everything into her. They'd sit at the dinner table, gushing about her latest photo shoot or how she'd caught the eye of some big agency. "She's going places," Dad would say, his voice thick with pride. I'd try to chime in, maybe mention a dress I'd sketched. But Mom would just nod absently, her eyes still on my sister. "That's nice, Marius," she'd say, like I'd told her I'd finished my homework. It stung, but I kept my sketches close, hoping one day they'd see me. When I was 12, I got my first real chance to shine. My middle school had a talent show, and I spent weeks sewing a dress for it, a flowing blue gown with hand-stitched details. I practiced my presentation, explaining how I'd designed it from scratch. The night of the show, I was nervous, but proud. I stepped on stage, heart racing, and showed off my creation. The crowd clapped, and for once I felt seen. But when I got home, Dad barely looked up from his newspaper. "Nice effort," he said, then turned to my sister. "Your audition's tomorrow, right? We'll make sure you're ready." My chest tightened. My moment didn't matter. By high school, the gap between us grew wider. My sister was 16, landing bigger modeling jobs, her face on billboards across Los Angeles. Mom would drive her to auditions, leaving me to take the bus home from school. I'd sit in my room cutting fabric scraps, teaching myself to sew from online tutorials. I told myself I'd get to fashion school, make my own way. But when I was 17, I worked up the courage to ask for help. I'd found a design program at a local college, $10,000 for tuition. I showed Dad the brochure, my hands shaking. "This could be my start," I said, voice low. He glanced at it, then sighed. "Marius, we're saving for your sister's training in Paris. She's got a shot at the big leagues. You understand, right?" I didn't. I nodded, but inside I was crumbling. Mom wasn't any better. She'd always say, "Your sister's career is a sure thing. Designing, that's a gamble." I wanted to scream that I had talent too, that my sketches were good, that I deserved a chance, but I swallowed it like always. My cousins Gavin and Hunter didn't help. They'd come over for family dinners, teasing me about my hobby while praising my sister's magazine covers. "You're still playing with needles," Gavin would laugh. Hunter would smirk, adding, "Stick to something practical." Even my Aunt Gloria, who'd drop by with her homemade pies, would pat my head and say, "You're so sweet to support your sister's success." Support. I was invisible. The final blow came when I was 18, right before graduation. My sister had just signed with an agency in Paris, and Mom and Dad threw a huge party to celebrate. Neighbors, friends, everyone came to toast her future. I stood in the corner watching them raise glasses to her name. I'd applied to the design program anyway, using my savings from a summer job at a coffee shop. I got in, but the tuition was still out of reach. I went to Mom one last time, begging for help. "Marius," she said, her tone sharp, "we can't afford both of you chasing dreams. Your sister's our priority." That night I lay in bed staring at my sketches, feeling like I'd never be enough. I decided then that I didn't need their approval. I'd make it on my own no matter how hard it got. I packed my bags, took my sewing machine, and walked out. I didn't say goodbye. I just left, determined to prove them wrong. That was the last time I saw them for 10 years. I walked out of my family's house with nothing but a suitcase and a burning need to prove them wrong. Finding a place to live wasn't easy. Los Angeles was expensive, and my savings from the coffee shop job, $500, wouldn't last long. I scoured classified ads, finally renting a tiny room in a shared apartment in Koreatown. The walls were thin, the sink leaked, but it was mine. I paid $200 a month splitting utilities with 3 roommates who barely noticed me. Every penny went to rent food and fabric. I ate instant noodles most nights, saving what I could for sewing supplies. My dream of designing dresses kept me going even when my stomach growled. I landed a job as a tailor's assistant at a small shop in the fashion district. The pay was barely enough, $8 an hour, but it was a start. The shop was cramped, filled with the hum of sewing machines and the smell of starch. My boss, a gruff woman named Rosa, didn't care about my sketches or ambitions, so straight don't waste thread she'd bark, tossing me alterations. I spent hours hemming pants, fixing zippers and mending seams. It wasn't glamorous, but I watched every stitch, learning how fabric moved, how patterns came together. At night, I dragged myself home too tired to eat and practiced sewing my own designs on my old machine. Money was tight, but I refused to give up. I budgeted every dollar, skipping movies, new clothes, anything that wasn't essential. I'd walk past boutiques on Melrose Avenue, studying their window displays, imagining my dresses there someday. To save on textbooks, I scoured library computers for free design tutorials. YouTube videos became my teachers how to draft a bodice cut, a sleeve drape fabric. I'd spend hours practicing ripping out stitches when I messed up, determined to get it right. My roommates thought I was crazy sewing until midnight, but I didn't care. This was my shot. One day, I overheard Rosa talking to a customer about a custom dress order. I piped up, offering to sketch something. Rosa raised an eyebrow, but let me try. I stayed late, drawing a simple A-line dress with a fitted waist. The customer loved it, and Rosa, grudgingly impressed, gave me a $10 bonus. It wasn't much, but it felt like a win. I started taking on small custom jobs at the shop, earning a bit extra. I saved every cent, dreaming of the day I could afford design school. Living frugally wasn't just about money, it was about focus. I stopped checking social media where Christine's modeling photos popped up constantly, her perfect smile plastered on fashion blogs. I didn't need reminders of what my family thought I couldn't be. Instead, I filled notebooks with sketches, each one better than the last. I'd pin them to my wall, a patchwork of ideas, flowy gowns, sharp blazers, delicate lace tops. They were proof I wasn't wasting my time. The hardest days were when doubt crept in. I'd lie awake wondering if Mom was right, if designing was just a gamble. But then I'd think of Christine's party dad's dismissive, nice effort, and my resolve would harden. I wasn't doing this for them anymore. I was doing it for me. I started entering local design contests, submitting sketches to small fashion events. Most rejected me, but one a community showcase accepted my entry. I spent weeks sewing a dress from cheap fabric, staying up until dawn to finish it. When it won third place, I cried. Not because of the $50 prize, but because someone saw my work. By the end of that first year, I'd saved enough to buy a used laptop, $300 from a pawn shop. It was slow, but it let me access online courses, free webinars, anything I could find on fashion design. I taught myself pattern making, studying late into the night. My skills grew, and so did my confidence. I wasn't just surviving, I was building something. The fashion district became my classroom, its shops and markets teaching me more than any textbook could. I didn't know it then, but those long nights were laying the foundation for everything to come. I was still a nobody stitching seams in a dusty shop, but I was learning, growing, and refusing to quit. A year after leaving home, I still stitching seams in the fashion district's dusty tailor shop, teaching myself design from YouTube videos. My life felt like a treadmill. Endless work, no progress. But everything changed the day Elaine Harris walked through the door. She was the new shop owner, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s with a no-nonsense vibe and a knack for spotting potential. I didn't know it then, but she'd become the mentor I desperately needed. Rosa, my old boss, had retired, leaving the shop in chaos. Orders piled up, and I was drowning in alterations. Elaine showed up on a Monday, her heels clicking as she surveyed the mess. "This place needs a backbone," she said, her voice crisp. I kept my head down, expecting another taskmaster, but when she caught me sketching a dress during a break, she didn't scold me. "Show me more," she demanded, leaning over my notebook. I hesitated, then flipped through pages of gowns and jackets I'd drawn late at night. Her eyes narrowed, not in judgment, but curiosity. "You've got something," she said. "Don't waste it." Elaine wasn't just talk. She started teaching me not just sewing, but real design. After hours, she'd pull out pattern books, showing me how to turn sketches into templates. "Design's not just art," she'd say, tapping a ruler on the table. "It's math, precision, and guts." I soaked up every word, staying late to practice cutting fabric under her watchful eye. She showed me how to drape muslin adjust seams for a perfect fit and choose fabrics that told a story. My hands grew steadier, my ideas bolder. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't just surviving. She didn't stop at design. Elaine saw I had a head for numbers and pushed me to learn the business side. "Talent's nothing without strategy," she'd say, handing me invoices to study. I learned how to price custom orders, negotiate with suppliers, and track expenses. She'd quiz me on profit margins, making me calculate costs for a dress in my head. $100 for fabric, $20 for labor. "What's your markup?" she'd ask. I stumbled at first, but she was patient, guiding me through every mistake. Slowly, I started seeing the shop not just as a job, but as a classroom for my future. Elaine's belief in me wasn't soft or sentimental. She was tough, calling out my sloppy stitches or half-baked sketches. "Do better," she'd say, tossing back a flawed pattern. But when I got it right, she'd nod, a rare smile breaking through. "That's my boy." Those words carried me through long nights when doubt whispered I'd never make it. I'd think of Mom saying design was a gamble, or Kristen's face on billboards, and I'd grit my teeth determined to prove them wrong. Elaine saw that fire and fanned it. One day she handed me a flyer for a local design competition. Enter it. She said no room for argument. I protested my skills weren't ready. I couldn't afford the entry fee. She waved me off, slipping me $50 from her own pocket. Pay me back when you win. I spent weeks on my entry, a sleek cocktail dress with hand-stitched embroidery. Elaine stayed late, helping me refine every detail. When I placed second, earning a $200 prize, she didn't say much, just handed me a coffee and said, "Keep going." That win wasn't just money. It was proof I could do this. Elaine also taught me about the industry's darker side. She'd seen designers chewed up by Los Angeles' cutthroat fashion scene. Connections matter as much as talent, she warned, sharing stories of clients who'd stiffed her or stolen designs. She introduced me to local fabric suppliers, teaching me how to haggle without losing respect. One supplier tried to overcharge me for silk, but Elaine stepped in her voice like steel. "Don't play games with my protege." I learned to stand my ground, to speak up without fear. She pushed me to network, dragging me to small fashion events where I'd pitch my sketches to boutique owners. I was shy at first, stumbling over my words. But Elaine coached me. "Own your work," she'd say. "No one's going to hand you a chance." I started carrying a portfolio showing my designs to anyone who'd listen. A few buyers took my card, and one ordered a custom jacket for $300. It was my first real sale, and Elaine celebrated by buying us tacos from a food truck. "Your first step," she said, grinning. By the time I turned 20, I wasn't just a tailor's assistant anymore. Elaine had transformed me. My designs were sharper, my business sense stronger. I started saving again, not just for survival, but for something bigger. I didn't know what yet, but Elaine's lessons gave me direction. She never asked for anything in return, but I vowed to make her proud. Then, one afternoon, my past came knocking in a way I never expected. 3 years after leaving home, I was working under Elaine's guidance at her tailor shop. My skills had grown sharper, my designs bolder, but I was still just an assistant hemming clothes while holding on to big dreams. Then, one afternoon, the shop's bell chimed, and in walked Kristen, my sister, draped in designer labels and overflowing with confidence. I hadn't seen her since the day I left home, and her sudden appearance hit me like a punch to the chest. She had no idea I worked there to her. I was just another clerk, but her presence tore open every wound from my childhood. Kristen strutted in her heels, clicking, holding a sleek red dress that needed hemming. "I need this fixed by tomorrow," she said, barely glancing at me as she slid the dress across the counter. I froze, my heart pounding. She looked the same, tall, flawless, her hair styled like she'd stepped off a runway. I kept my head down, hoping she wouldn't recognize me. But Elaine, busy with a client, called out, "Marius, handle it." Kristen's eyes snapped to me, narrowing as she registered my face. A slow, smug smile spread across her lips. "Marius, you're still sewing other people's clothes?" she said, her voice laced with pity. I clenched my jaw, focusing on the dress, but she wasn't done. "I thought you'd at least be doing something." "Bigger by now," she said, leaning on the counter, her tone sharp. "What is this? An entry-level job? You're what, 21? And still stuck here?" Her laugh was light, but it cut deep, echoing the years of being overlooked. I wanted to snap back to tell her about the designs I'd sold, the competition I'd placed in, but my throat tightened. I just nodded, pinning the hem, my hand steady, despite the anger bubbling inside. Kristen kept going, flipping through her phone as she spoke. You know, I just got back from a shoot in Milan. They're flying me to New York next week for Fashion Week. She paused, glancing at me over her screen. Do you even know what that's like? Or are you still playing with scraps? Her words were a blade, each one slicing into the dreams I'd fought so hard for. I remembered Mom saying design was a gamble, Dad's dismissive nods, and now Kristen standing there in her $2,000 shoes acting like I was nothing. I could have stayed silent, let her walk away thinking she'd won. But something in me shifted. I looked up, meeting her eyes. It's not about scraps, I said, my voice low but firm. It's about building something real. She raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised I'd spoken at all. Building? She scoffed. You're fixing hems for a living. Don't kid yourself. She grabbed her purse, tossing her hair. Just have the dress ready by noon tomorrow. She turned to leave, her heels echoing as she walked out, leaving her words hanging in the air like smoke. Elaine, who'd overheard, came over after Kristen left. Who was that? She asked, her tone sharp. I hesitated, then muttered, My sister. Elaine's eyes softened, but she didn't push. Instead, she handed me a new pattern. Focus on your work, she said. That's what matters. I nodded, but Christine's words burned. I wasn't just a tailor's assistant. I was learning, growing, creating. Her mockery lit a fire in me hotter than ever. I wasn't going to stay in her shadow forever. That night I stayed late at the shop, sketching furiously. I poured my anger into every line, designing a bold, asymmetrical gown that screamed confidence. Elaine peeked over my shoulder, nodding. That's got edge, she said. Use it. I decided then that I wouldn't just prove Kristen wrong. I'd prove it to everyone who doubted me. Mom, Dad, my cousins, all of them. I'd show them what I could do, not with words, but with my work. The next day, Kristen came to pick up her dress. I handed it to her, perfectly hemmed, not saying a word. She inspected it, then smirked. Not bad for a side hustle, she said, tossing me a $20 tip like it was charity. I didn't touch it. I just stared at her, my resolve hardening. This isn't a side hustle, I said, my voice steady. It's my life. She rolled her eyes, walking out without another word, but I didn't care. Her taunts weren't going to stop me. I started pushing myself harder. I entered every design contest I could find, even ones Elaine thought were long shots. I spent nights refining my portfolio, pitching to local boutiques, saving every dollar for better materials. Christine's visit wasn't just a jab, it was a wake-up call. I wasn't going to let her define me. I remembered the talent show at 12, the way Dad ignored my dress, and I vowed never to feel that small again. By the end of that year, I'd sold 3 more designs to small shops, each one a step closer to my goal. Elaine noticed the change in me, the drive in my eyes. You're not just talented, she told me one evening, locking up the shop. You're unstoppable. I clung to that, letting it fuel me. Kristen might have been on billboards, but I was building something she'd never understand, a future on my own terms. 2 years after Kristen's sneer shop with Elaine's guidance giving me wings, I was ready to soar. I threw myself into a renowned fashion design program at a top Los Angeles institute, pouring $3,000 from my savings into tuition. The curriculum was brutal haute couture techniques, global branding, supply chain logistics, but I thrived, sketching bold designs past midnight, my mind alive with possibilities. My professor saw something in me, one pulling me aside to say, "Your work has fire. Don't hold back." I wasn't just a student. I was a force carving my own path. Elaine's words rang in my ears. Make them feel your vision. I took that to heart, channeling every ounce of determination into my dream. At 24, I launched Cole Designs, my fashion label, in a sleek Los Angeles showroom that buzzed with creativity. With $40,000 saved and a substantial loan, I transformed a bare space into a vibrant studio filled with the hum of sewing machines and the scent of new fabric. My debut collection, 15 avant-garde pieces blending sharp tailoring with intricate beadwork, exploded onto the scene. High-end boutiques across the U.S. clamored for my designs, and I signed deals worth $500,000 in the first 6 months. A viral video of my runway show racked up millions of views online, and Vogue ran a feature calling me fashion's bold new trailblazer. My big break came with an invitation to Milan Fashion Week, a stage most designers only dream of. It was a long shot secured through Ela's industry connections, but the $1,000 entry fee was a gamble I couldn't resist. I poured my soul into a showpiece, a sculptural gown with hand-embroidered details that shimmered like a galaxy. In Milan, watching my designs glide down the runway before a crowd of global editors and celebrities, I felt invincible. The standing ovation echoed through me, and a top Italian fashion house offered a $1 million partnership to carry my collection in their flagship stores. WWD dubbed me the American Prodigy, and my Instagram surged past 1 million followers overnight. I celebrated by taking Elaine to a rooftop restaurant, her proud nod worth more than any headline. Back in Los Angeles, Cole Designs became a magnet for the fashion elite. My showroom was a whirlwind of activity, with buyers from Paris and Dubai placing orders that pushed my revenue past $2 million in a year. I built a lean, passionate team, their energy fueling our growth as we crafted collections that turned heads. I spoke at global fashion summits, sharing stages with industry giants, my voice steady, as I told audiences how I'd turned rejection into power. My designs dressed A-list actresses at red carpet events, and a major retailer signed a $75,000 contract for my next season. I wasn't just in the game, I was rewriting the rules. Amid this storm of success, I met Jared Foster, a rising fashion photographer whose work captured raw electric emotion. He was 27. His quiet intensity cutting through the chaos of a shoot for my Milan collection. I was buried in fabric swatches when he walked into my showroom, his camera slung over his shoulder. "Your designs don't just look good, they speak," he said, his eyes locked on mine. I smiled, disarmed by his insight. His photos transformed my collection into art, every frame pulsing with life. Over coffee in a dimly lit Echo Park cafe, we talked about dreams his to shoot for international runways, mine to redefine fashion. Jared became my rock. We'd steal moments between deadlines, sharing late-night walks along Venice Beach or brainstorming over tacos in Koreatown. I opened up about my past, the years of being overshadowed by Mom's favoritism. He listened, his hand warm on mine, and said, "You're building something they can't ignore." Our connection deepened, rooted in shared ambition and quiet trust. He'd challenged me to push boundaries, suggesting daring cuts for my next collection, while I cheered his pitches to top magazines. We were a team dreaming big and lifting each other higher. Jared's support went beyond words. His stunning photos shot without charge saved me tens of thousands and landed my designs on the cover of a major fashion journal. That exposure sparked a $1.2 million deal with a global department store chain. At his gallery opening, I wore a gown from my collection, and he introduced me as Marius Cole Fashion's next icon. The crowd's applause felt like a vow. I was unstoppable. By 25, Cole Designs was a global name. I staged a jaw-dropping show in Los Angeles, packing a grand venue with press and buyers. Jared's lens captured every moment, and Elaine's front-row nod said it all. The show generated $1 million in order solidifying my place among fashion's elite. I was no longer the boy who left home with nothing. I was a powerhouse ready to face anything. Then one morning, a call came that pulled my past into sharp relief. The screen showed an unfamiliar number, but something made me answer. "Marius," a voice said, tentative yet familiar. My chest tightened. It was Mom Barbara, her voice softer than it had ever been before. I gripped the phone, my pulse racing as she continued. "It's been a while. We're having a party for Christine's birthday next month, her 27th. I'd love for you to come." I froze, the air in the room suddenly heavy. Kristen's birthday. The sister who'd mocked me in the tailor's shop, who'd always been Mom's pride while I was the afterthought. I hadn't spoken to Mom since I left home, hadn't seen her face since Dad's brief nod that day. Her invitation felt like a trap, a pull back to a past I'd fought to leave behind. "Why now?" I asked, my voice sharp. Mom hesitated, then said, "It's a big milestone. Family should be together." Her words sounded rehearsed, like she was reading from a script. I pictured her in the old kitchen surrounded by photos of Christine's modeling gigs. None of mine. "I'll think about it," I said, cutting her off before she could say more. I hung up my hands, trembling. The rest of the day, I couldn't focus. My team buzzed around the showroom, prepping for a new client meeting, but Mom's voice echoed in my head. Why would she reach out after all this time? I remembered the sting of her dismissing my dreams, calling fashion a gamble, while Christine's career was always worth celebrating. The idea of walking into their world again, smiling for Kristen's big day, made my chest tighten. I wanted to toss the invitation aside, keep building my empire, and forget them. But part of me wondered what they'd say now, seeing who I'd become. That evening I met Jared at our favorite diner in Silver Lake, the neon sign casting a warm glow over our booth. He noticed my mood instantly, his brown eyes narrowing. "What's wrong?" he asked, sliding his coffee aside. I told him about the call, my words spilling out. Mom's sudden invitation, Kristen's birthday, the years of being invisible. Jared listened, his hand resting on the table, steady as always. "Sounds like a lot," he said when I finished, his voice calm but thoughtful. "Why do you think she called now?" I shrugged, stirring my tea. Maybe they heard about my work, or maybe they just want an audience for Kristen. At the front door, I caught a glimpse of Mom through the window, arranging a tray of canapes with her usual precision. Her focus was all for Kristen's night, just as it always had been. I pushed down the old ache, reminding myself why I was here, not to win her over, but to prove I'd outgrown her shadow. Jared's hand grazed my back, his touch a quiet reminder. "Stay focused," he whispered. "You've got this." I took a deep breath, stepping over the threshold, the weight of the moment settling around me. The house was alive with guests, their laughter and clinking glasses filling the air. The living room hadn't changed much. Same cream walls, same framed photos favoring Kristen's achievements. I spotted Dad near the dining table, his posture stiff as he chatted with a neighbor. He didn't see me, and I wasn't ready to face him yet. My wallet felt heavy with the business cards, a silent promise of the world I'd created. I wasn't here to flaunt them, not yet, but their presence steadied me, a reminder I wasn't the boy this house once diminished. Mom approached, her smile polite but distant. "Marius, you're here," she said, her eyes skimming my suit without comment. The lack of warmth wasn't new, but it still stung. "Nice party," I said, keeping my tone neutral. She nodded, already turning to a guest with a tray of drinks. No questions, no recognition, just the same old indifference. Jared's hand brushed mine, his look saying, "You're bigger than this." I straightened, refusing to let her detachment pull me under. This night wasn't about her approval. It was about facing my past and walking away free. We moved deeper into the crowd, Jared's presence a steady pulse beside me. Guests swirled around us, some in glittering dresses, others in pressed shirts, all caught up in the celebration of Kristen. I kept my wallet close, the business cards a quiet anchor, but I didn't reach for them. This wasn't the moment to show my hand. I was saving that for when it mattered most. Jared navigated the room with ease, his charm disarming curious glances. "Just keep being you," he murmured when a guest's stare lingered. His words kept me grounded, my focus sharp. Then I saw Kristen standing near the dessert table, her laugh bright as she held court with a cluster of friends. She hadn't noticed me, and I wasn't ready to cross that line. Her presence stirred a flicker of old wounds, her taunts, her effortless claim on everyone's attention. But I pushed it aside. I wasn't here to challenge her tonight. I was here to stand in this space, to feel its weight and not break. Jared sensed my shift, his voice low. "You're stronger than this place," he said, his eyes steady. I nodded, my fingers grazing my wallet, the cards inside a silent vow. The party pulsed on, voices rising over the music. I overheard snippets of praise for Kristen's latest campaign, Mom's proud laughter, Dad's quiet agreement. It was the same dynamic I'd grown up in, but it didn't cut as deep. I'd built a life beyond their reach, and tonight was about proving that to myself. Still, the air felt charged, like the calm before a storm. I sipped a glass of sparkling water, letting Jared's warmth beside me steady my nerves. Whatever lay ahead, I was ready. Not as the boy they'd overlooked, but as the man who'd carved his own path. Then Kristen turned. Kristen's gaze cut through the crowded room, her eyes narrowing as they locked onto mine. The chatter of the party faded, the air thick with the weight of our history. She stood by the dessert table, her sleek dress catching the light, a perfect picture of confidence. Kristen cut across the room, her smile sharp as a blade. "Marius," she said, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "I bet you still can't even afford an old car with that pathetic job of yours." A few chuckles rippled through the crowd. Her words sliced deep, but I stood firm, my heartbeat steady. Before I could respond, a man slipped an arm around Kristen's waist. Sean Murphy, Kristen's husband. He introduced himself, his tone dripping with arrogance. His tailored suit and smug grin radiated privilege. He looked me up and down, then smirked. "Didn't expect you to show up, still scraping by, or did you borrow that suit?" The room rippled with laughter. Mom and Dad watched from the sidelines, their faces unreadable. The old wound flared. Kristen's taunts, now amplified by Sean, felt like a scripted attack. But I wasn't the boy they used to dismiss. I reached into my wallet, pulling out a single Cole Designs business card, its gold-embossed logo gleaming under the chandelier. "Actually," I said, my voice calm but firm, handing it to Sean, "I've been doing just fine." He took the card, his smirk faltering as he read it. Kristen leaned in, her brow furrowing. I stood tall, Jared's hand brushing mine, his silent support urging me on. The room quieted, the tension palpable, as Sean pulled out his phone, his fingers tapping the screen. "Let's see what this is about," he muttered, clearly expecting to find nothing. Seconds later, his expression shifted, eyes widening, mouth tightening. He glanced at Kristen, then back at the card, his voice rising as he read aloud. Cole Designs, founded by Marius Cole, hailed as fashion's new powerhouse. He paused, his tone disbelieving. Says here, you closed a $1 million deal with a global retailer, staged a sold-out show at Milan Fashion Week, and dressed A-list stars for the Oscars. The room went silent, guests exchanging stunned glances. Mom's wine glass froze mid-air, Dad's jaw tightened, and Kristen's smile vanished, her face pale. Sean kept reading, his voice louder now, almost accusatory. Vogue called you the American prodigy. Your brand's revenue hit $2 million last year, with partnerships in Paris and Dubai. He looked up, his smirk gone. This is you? The question hung heavy, the crowd's eyes on me. I nodded, my gaze steady. That's me, I said, my voice clear, cutting through the hush. Jared's hand squeezed mine, his pride a quiet fire beside me. The business card, small but mighty, had turned their mockery into shock. Kristen tried to recover, her laugh forced. Well, anyone can print a card, she said. But her voice wavered, lacking its earlier bite. Sean ignored her, still staring at his phone. There's a WWD article, he said almost to himself. Your designs are in every major boutique from New York to Tokyo. He looked at me, his confidence crumbling. How did you? He trailed off, unable to finish. The guests murmured, some pulling out their own phones, whispers of Cole Designs spreading like wildfire. Mom stepped forward, her face a mix of confusion and something like regret. Marius, I didn't know, she said, her voice soft, almost pleading. I met her gaze, my heart steady. You never asked, I said, not cruelly, but with the weight of years unspoken. Dad shifted uncomfortably, his eyes avoiding mine. The room felt smaller, the air charged with their disbelief. I wasn't here to beg for their approval. I was here to show them who I'd become. Jared leaned in, his voice low. You did it, he whispered, his words a lifeline. I nodded, feeling the weight of the moment lift. This wasn't just about proving them wrong. It was about claiming my truth. The party resumed, but the energy had shifted. Guests approached me, their questions cautious but curious. Are you really the designer? One woman asked, her eyes wide. I smiled, handing her a business card. Check for yourself, I said, my confidence unshaken. Others followed, their interest genuine, some recognizing my name from fashion headlines. Kristen retreated to a corner, her usual poise faltering as she whispered to Sean, who kept scrolling on his phone, his face grim. Mom hovered nearby, her hands fidgeting, but she didn't approach again. Dad stayed by the fireplace, his silence louder than ever. Jared stayed close, his presence a quiet strength. They didn't see this coming, he said, his grin subtle but proud. I laughed softly, the tension easing. Neither did I admitted, glancing at the business card in a guest's hand. It was more than paper. It was my journey, my fight, my victory. The room buzzed with whispers, the narrative flipping from Kristen's night to mine. I didn't need their applause, but the shift felt like justice, hard won and long overdue. As the night wore on, I felt lighter, unburdened. Kristen's taunts, Sean's arrogance, Mom and Dad's indifference. They couldn't touch me anymore. I'd built a world they couldn't dismiss. And that card, now circulating among the guests, was proof. I glanced at Jared, his eyes meeting mine with unwavering support. This was my moment, not theirs, and I was ready to leave it behind. Mom's hesitant approach lingered in my mind as the party's noise faded behind us. Jared and I left the house, the weight of the night still heavy on my shoulders. Barbara's words, soft, almost apologetic, had stirred something, but I pushed it aside. The drive back to my Los Angeles apartment was quiet, the city's lights blurring past. Jared reached for my hand, his touch steady. "You showed them who you are," he said, his voice a quiet anchor. I nodded, but the unease lingered. Something told me the night wasn't over. Days later, my phone buzzed with an email from my assistant marked urgent. "Marius, you need to see this," it read, with a forwarded message attached. My stomach dropped as I opened it. A cold, formal request from Kristen addressed to Cole Designs, asking to model in my next international show in Paris. The audacity hit me like a slap. After her mockery at the party, after years of dismissing me, she thought she could waltz into my world. I leaned back in my chair, the hum of my showroom distant. My team was prepping for a new collection, but this email demanded my focus. I called my creative director, Elaine, who'd mentored me through my early days. "Kristen wants in on Paris," I said, my voice tight. Elaine's laugh was sharp through the phone. "She's got nerves," she said. "Her portfolio's solid, but she's no fit for your vision. Too commercial, not enough edge." I agreed, drafting a polite but firm rejection. "Thank you for your interest, Kristen. Unfortunately, your profile doesn't align with our upcoming show's aesthetic." I hit send, feeling a flicker of satisfaction. My show, my rules. Within hours, my phone lit up with notifications. Kristen had taken to social media, her posts vicious and pointed. "Some people fake their way to the top," she wrote on X, tagging my brand. "Cole Designs, more like Cole Deceptions. Bet he's still stitching dresses in his garage." The words cut deep, echoing the taunts she'd thrown my way for years. Another post followed. "Don't believe the hype. His empire is a house of cards." Comments piled up, some from strangers, others from her circle, amplifying her lies. My chest tightened, but I refused to let her words unravel me. Jared found me staring at my phone, my jaw clenched. "What's going on?" he asked, his brow furrowing. I showed him the posts, my hands trembling. "She's trying to tear me down," I said, my voice low. Jared scrolled through, his expression darkening. "This is jealousy, plain and simple," he said. "She can't handle your light." He set the phone down, his hand on mine. "You've built something real, Marius. She's just noise." His words steadied me, but the sting of Kristen's attack lingered. I'd faced her barbs before, but this was public, calculated. I checked my brand's X account. The posts were gaining traction, some followers questioning my credibility. My team was already fielding calls from clients, their voices tinged with concern. I took a deep breath, my resolve hardening. Kristen wanted a fight, but I wasn't playing her game. I called Elaine again, her voice calm but firm. "Don't engage," she advised. "Your work speaks for itself. Let her dig her own grave." I nodded, though the urge to fire back was strong. Instead, I posted a single image from my Milan show, a suit that had graced Vogue's cover, with the caption, "Crafted with truth, worn with pride." The response was immediate. Fans and industry insiders flooded the comments, praising my designs, drowning out Kristen's noise. A fashion blogger with thousands of followers wrote, "Cole Designs is the real deal." My team reported a surge in website traffic, orders pouring in. Kristen's smear was backfiring, but the personal cost weighed on me. She wasn't just attacking my brand. She was attacking me, the brother she'd always overshadowed. I felt the old wounds reopen, but I wasn't that boy anymore. That evening, my phone rang. Barbara's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated, then answered, my voice cool. "What is it, Barbara?" I said, the name deliberate, a line drawn. She faltered, her tone unsteady. "Marius, I saw Kristen's posts. I didn't know she'd do this." Her words felt hollow, too late. "You never stopped her before," I replied, my voice steady. "Why start now?" She stammered, offering excuses, but I cut her off. "I'm done with this, Barbara. Don't call again." I hung up, my heart pounding but resolute. Minutes later, Thomas called. His voice was gruff, hesitant. "Marius, your mother's upset," he began. I stopped him. "Thomas, you both chose your side years ago," I said, the name cutting through the pretense of family. "I don't need your apologies now." He tried to protest, but I ended the call, my fingers steady as I blocked their numbers. Kristen's too. Sean's followed for good measure. The act felt final, like closing a book I'd long outgrown. Jared watched me from the couch, his eyes soft but proud. "You okay?" he asked, his voice gentle. I nodded, sinking beside him. "Better than okay," I said, a weight lifting. "They don't get to define me anymore." He pulled me close, his warmth grounding me. The city hummed outside my window, alive with possibility. My phone buzzed with a message from Elaine. "Paris is sold out. You're untouchable." I smiled, the sting of Kristen's words fading. Kristen's posts continued, but they lost steam. Industry peers rallied around me, their support louder than her lies. A major retailer emailed, confirming a $3 million expansion deal, proof my empire was no house of cards. I leaned into Jared, his arm around me, and felt a quiet strength. I'd faced their worst and come out stronger. This wasn't just about winning. It was about letting go fully. And finally, the morning after Kristen's failed attempt to tarnish my name, I woke to a Los Angeles sunrise, its golden light spilling through my apartment windows. The city hummed with promise, and for the first time in years, I felt unburdened. Jared was already up, brewing coffee in the kitchen, his easy smile a quiet reminder of the life we were building. My phone buzzed with messages from my team, updates on the Paris show's success, but my thoughts drifted to the bigger picture. I'd cut ties with Kristen, Thomas, and Barbara, and the silence that followed was liberating. Their world no longer defined me. News trickled in over the next few weeks, painting a stark picture of Kristen's downfall. A fashion insider posted on X that her agency had dropped her after her public attack on me. Unprofessional conduct, they called it, citing her posts as a liability. Major brands followed suit, canceling her contracts one by one. A lingerie line she'd modeled for pulled her campaign, replacing her with a new face. Whispers spread that her bookings dried up, her once shining career now a cautionary tale. Sean, her husband, was no help. Rumors swirled of his own financial troubles, their lavish lifestyle crumbling under mounting debts. A tabloid headline screamed, "Models' meltdown leads to money woes," detailing their struggle to keep up appearances. I didn't revel in it, but the irony wasn't lost on me. Kristen's attempt to dim my light had only darkened her own. Meanwhile, my world was brighter than ever. Cole Designs was thriving, with orders flooding in after the Paris show. A major department store chain signed a $5 million deal to carry my latest collection, and my team buzzed with excitement over a new collaboration in London. Elaine called to congratulate me, her voice warm with pride. "You've built something unstoppable," she said. I smiled, grateful for her guidance. But my heart was with Jared, who'd stood by me through every storm. We spent evenings planning a getaway to the coast, a chance to breathe away from the chaos. His steady presence made every victory sweeter. One afternoon, I sat in my showroom sketching designs for the next season. The space was alive with creativity. Fabrics draped across tables, my team debating color palettes in the corner. I paused, reflecting on the journey that brought me here. Kristen's betrayal, Thomas and Barbara's indifference, they had once felt like anchors dragging me down. Now they were shadows fading against the life I'd carved out. Jared walked in, carrying takeout from our favorite taco spot. "Thought you'd need a break," he said, setting the bag down with a grin. I laughed, pulling him into a quick kiss. This was my family now. People who saw me, who lifted me up. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. Kristen's world was unraveling, her posts on X growing desperate, pleading for sympathy. "Misunderstood," she wrote, but the public wasn't buying it. Fashion blogs dissected her fall, pointing to her attack on me as the tipping point. A commenter summed it up. "You don't mess with someone's reputation and expect to walk away clean." Her followers dwindled, brands distanced themselves, and reports surfaced of creditors hounding her and Sean. I didn't wish her pain, but I felt no guilt. She'd made her choices, just as I'd made mine. My phone pinged with an email from a journalist requesting an interview about my rise in the fashion world. I agreed, but only to share my story, not to dwell on Kristen's drama. During the interview, I spoke about resilience, about building something from nothing. "Family isn't just blood," I said, my voice steady. "It's the people who respect you, who believe in your worth." The journalist nodded, scribbling notes. Later, the article went viral, fans praising my grace under pressure. It felt like a final note in a long chapter, one I was ready to close. Jared and I took that coastal trip, driving along the Pacific with the windows down, the ocean's roar filling the silence. We stopped at a cliffside cafe, sharing stories over coffee and pastries. "You ever think about them?" he asked, his eyes on the horizon. I knew he meant Thomas, Barbara, Kristen. "Not anymore," I said, my hand finding his. "They're my past. You're my future." He smiled, pulling me close, and for the first time, I felt truly free. The weight of their expectations, their dismissals, was gone. Back in Los Angeles, my showroom became a hub of innovation. My team expanded, hiring new designers who shared my vision. We worked late, fueled by ambition and laughter, creating pieces that would grace runways from New York to Tokyo. A client stopped by, marveling at a suit destined for a red carpet. "You're changing the game," she said, and I believed her. Every sketch, every stitch, was a testament to my strength, a reminder that I'd built this life on my own terms. Kristen's name faded from the headlines, replaced by stories of emerging talents and my own brand's ascent. A friend forwarded me a post about her selling designer bags online, a desperate move to cover debts. I didn't respond. Her story was no longer mine to carry. Instead, I focused on what mattered. Jared's unwavering support, my team's passion, the joy of creating. One evening, as we celebrated a new deal over drinks, Jared raised a glass. "To you," he said, his eyes warm. "To everything you've overcome." I clinked my glass against his, my heart full. Looking back, I saw the lesson clearly. Family isn't defined by shared blood or old ties. It's forged by respect, by those who see your worth and stand by you. Thomas and Barbara had chosen Kristen, but I'd chosen myself. And that choice led me to Jared, to Elaine, to a team that felt like home. Kristen's fall was her own, a consequence of envy and spite. I didn't need her to fail to know I'd succeeded. My happiness, my peace, was proof enough. As I stood on my balcony that night, Los Angeles glittering below, I felt whole. The city stretched out, endless and alive, mirroring the future I'd built.